Okay, you know what's funny about high achievers? We will plan the absolute hell out of a new habit. Like color-coded calendar, perfect morning routine, new workout clothes, maybe even one of those fancy water bottles that promises to turn us into the kind of person who wakes up at 5 a.m. and meditates while the sun rises. And then maybe about 8 days later, we quit. And it's not because we're lazy or we don't care. It's because the plan that we made was designed for a completely imaginary version of ourselves. A version who never gets stuck in traffic, never has a stressful workday, never has a sick kid, never has a nervous system that is completely fried after carrying responsibility all day long. So when the plan stops going perfectly, our perfectionist brain says, oh well, I guess we failed. And today, I want to talk about why that happens. Because if you have perfectionist tendencies like me, the very thing that makes you successful is often the same thing that quietly sabotages your ability to build healthy habits that actually last. And the good news is there is a much better way to do this. Welcome to Burnout-Free Me, your success and well-being podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Grimm, and I am so glad you're here. Let's go from burnout to breakthrough together. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Burnout-Free Me. This is episode number 145, and I'm your host, Dr. Amy Grimm. I am a veterinarian, a certified life and well-being coach, and someone who has spent a lot of years working with high-achieving professionals who look successful on paper, but feel like they're quietly running on fumes underneath all of it. And if that sounds a little too familiar, you're absolutely in the right place. So, before we dive in today, I want to remind you that if you enjoy these conversations and want deeper tools for getting out of burnout and back into your life, you can grab my free resource called the Burnout Fix at burnoutfreeme.com or in the show notes. It's a simple starting point that will help you understand what's actually happening in your nervous system and your body when you feel overwhelmed, exhausted, or stuck, and then what to do about it. Okay, all right, so today we're talking about something that affects many high achievers, and that is perfectionism, and specifically how perfectionism sabotages our ability to create healthy habits that are actually sustainable. And yes, I am speaking from experience here. Perfectionism is one of those traits that many of us wear like a badge of honor. It starts really early. You're the responsible kid, the good student, the one who gets things right. And you learn very quickly that doing things well gets rewarded. Teachers love it, parents praise it, and your brain starts to associate worth with performance. And somewhere along the way, the line between excellence and perfection gets really blurry. And I definitely grew up thinking perfectionism was a good thing. I thought it meant I cared. I thought it meant I had high standards. And if I'm being really honest, I also assumed that people who were not perfectionists were probably just lazy or not trying hard enough. Past Amy, she had some opinions. But what I didn't understand at the time was how much anxiety and pressure that mindset was quietly creating in my life. And perfectionism doesn't just make you work harder, it creates this constant background tension in your nervous system. Your brain is always scanning for mistakes, for ways that things could go wrong, and for evidence that you're not good enough. And the irony is that this constant pressure actually narrows your window of tolerance. So instead of feeling steady and capable, you are hovering right at the edge of stress most of the time, which means when something does not go perfectly, your brain reacts fast. I mean, very fast, buzzing around, trying to find the next thing that will make everything feel controlled again. Because perfectionism is really about control. We want the plan to work. We want the outcome to be predictable. We want to know that if we do the right things, everything will turn out exactly the way we expect. But real life doesn't work like that. And this shows up everywhere in our careers, in our relationships, in our hobbies, in the way we talk to ourselves. I mean, over the years, I have lost count of the number of things that I started and then abandoned because I realized I wasn't actually going to be amazing at them. And these included many things, sports, projects, creative skills, other things that I just wanted to learn, Duolingo. I'm sure many of us are familiar with that. And if I couldn't be good at it quickly, my brain would go, well, this sucks. Let's go find something else to be perfect at. And when you look at that pattern, it's not actually about discipline or motivation. It's really about nervous system safety. You see, your brain would rather quit than sit in the discomfort of imperfection. And this is exactly why perfectionism then sabotages any healthy habits. Because habits require repetition. They require patience, and they require you to be imperfect. And perfectionist brains hate that. So, let's say you decide you want to create a healthier routine. Maybe you decide you want to exercise every day, or you're going to cook more meals at home, or meditate in the morning, or read more. Whatever the habit is, you start by creating the most beautiful, aspirational plan imaginable. You're going to work out for an hour every day. You're going to meal prep on Sundays. You're going to wake up early and journal and drink lemon water like one of those very calm people on Instagram. And in that moment, the plan feels amazing. Your brain gets these little hits of dopamine from imagining your future self. But here's the catch. The plan you created has almost nothing to do with your actual life because it assumes you will suddenly become a completely different person, someone with unlimited time and unlimited energy and this perfectly regulated system all of the time, which means that the moment real life shows up, your plan might start falling apart. Just everyday things like you get stuck late at work. Maybe you have a stressful meeting, you didn't sleep well, your kid wakes up sick, your dog pukes all over the carpet. By the end of the day, your brain is just fried. And suddenly that 1 hour workout feels nearly impossible. And this is the moment where perfectionism sneaks in because perfectionist thinking tends to be very all or nothing, very black and white. So if I cannot do the full workout, what's the point? If I miss today, I've already failed. If I can't do it perfectly, I might as well just quit and not do it at all. And now that habit disappears. Not because the habit itself was unrealistic, but because the way that we designed it had no relationship to our actual capacity. So this is really where nervous system awareness becomes really powerful. Because when your nervous system is under stress, your brain has less bandwidth. Your capacity shrinks and your ability to push through effortful tasks just drops dramatically. So when you build a habit that requires your nervous system to operate at full capacity every single day, it's only a matter of time before it collapses. Which brings me to these concepts that have completely changed the way that I build habits. So here it is. The first thing is called the minimum baseline. So your minimum baseline is the smallest version of the habit that still counts. And I mean small, so small that your brain almost rolls its eyes at it. So if your ideal goal is exercising for an hour, your minimum baseline might be 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And your brain will probably say, well, that's stupid. It will say, that's not enough time to count or even matter. But here's the thing. Consistency is what rewires your brain. And consistency is also what helps you widen your window of tolerance. It's what teaches your nervous system that this behavior is safe and repeatable. And 5 minutes of movement every day for a year will transform your health far more than 1 hour of exercise for a couple weeks followed by just quitting. So, that's number one. The second concept is something that we don't often consider because we expect everything to go perfectly. So this is, you need a backup plan. For reals, not a vague idea of a backup plan, like an actual plan. Plan A is what you do when life is cooperating. And plan B, the backup plan, is what you do when life is chaotic. And let's be honest, life is chaotic a lot of the time. So maybe your ideal plan is a 30-minute workout after work. So your backup plan might be a 10-minute walk, or stretching for 5 minutes, or simply stepping outside and taking 10 slow breaths. Something that keeps the habit alive without overwhelming your system. Remember, the goal is not perfection. The goal is continuity. When you maintain even a tiny version of your habit during stressful seasons, you avoid that start-stop cycle that so many people with perfectionist tendencies seem to create. When you're consistent, you stay connected to the identity of someone who follows through. And that matters far more than doing things perfectly. So there's another reason to decide on your backup plan ahead of time. So I guess I'll give you 3 things here. And that is decision fatigue. Because when your brain is tired, overwhelmed, or emotionally stretched, your ability to make decisions dramatically drops. And this is basic neuroscience. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for your planning and decision making, it gets depleted under stress. Which means if you wait until the chaotic moment to try to come up with a backup plan, figure out what it should be, your brain will probably say something like, you know what? Forget it. We'll just start again next week. And that's how the habit disappears. When you decide ahead of time what plan B actually looks like, you're going to remove that decision entirely because you already know what to do. And this is where self-compassion becomes incredibly important because perfectionist brains tend to be pretty harsh. They judge mistakes and they judge inconsistency and they judge anything that feels less than ideal. But sustainable change really requires a different approach. It requires compassion and acceptance, and it requires you recognizing that you are not a machine. You are a human being with a nervous system that fluctuates based on stress and sleep and emotion and workload and about 1,000 other variables. So healthy habits have to work with that reality, not against it. And when you start building habits this way, something really interesting happens because now you can suddenly relax. You're no longer trying to force yourself into this rigid standard. You're working with your capacity and you're expanding your window of tolerance gradually instead of just trying to overwhelm it. And that's how the habits you create actually stick. So here's a small experiment you can try this week. Pick just one habit that you have been struggling to maintain. Okay? Have you picked it? Now, ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1, what is my true minimum baseline? And number 2 is, what is my backup plan when life gets messy? And write those down. Write the answers down. And then practice doing the smallest version consistently. Doesn't have to be perfect, just consistent. And just watch what happens. All right, my friends, that is what I want to offer you today. Perfectionism does not just create pressure in your work, it quietly sabotages the habits that would actually support your health, your energy, and your life outside of work. And when you shift your focus from perfection to capacity, everything changes. So if today's conversation resonated with you, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you want more tools to help you stop running on empty and start feeling like yourself again, you can grab the Burnout Fix. It's in the show notes, or visit me at burnout-freeme.com. It is a great place to start if you're ready to understand what burnout actually is and how to begin shifting it. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me. And please remember this. You do not have to do life perfectly to do it well. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.